welcome here on Canal Do English for another edition of the program, The Forum. Our guest today is Viola Llewellyn. I hope I'm not going to mutilate her name. She is the director of Ovamba Cameroon, that is the general manager of Ovamba Cameroon. With her, we're going to talk about herself and then talk about a high-tech company called FinTech, which was founded in the United States of America. She's going to tell us about the new innovation that her company offers to industrialists and small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa and Cameroon in particular. Please do not go away. We shall be right back. Once again, welcome to this edition of the program, The Forum. We have as guests, as I announced at the introduction of this program, Viola Llewellyn, who is the president of Ovamba Cameroon. And it's a pleasure to have you here, madam.
Thank you for having me, Elie.
It's good to be here.
Thank you very much. And let's begin. Let's go straight into the crux of what you're here. You are the president, right? That is rightful up.
I'm the co-founder and president of Ovamba Solutions, Inc., which is the US registered company, and I'm the general manager.
You are the general manager
of the Cameroon branch.
The Cameroon branch. And when I went on to your website or the bio, I understood you are you develop platforms, applications for small and medium-sized enterprises, and also offer kind of business solutions to all those who have these small and medium-sized enterprises in Cameroon, in Africa, and out of Africa.
That's right.
Could you be explicit? Because someone who listens to me talk about fintech company, talk about developing apps, that's, to some people, it's as if I'm speaking French. So how will you try to tell a layman what your company is focused on?
Thanks for that. Let's set some context. FinTech.
Yes.
Financial technologies. This was the word that was coined maybe about 6 years ago when Marvin Cole and I first got into this line of business. It's the ability to create technologies to deliver financial services to individuals or companies who do not have access to finance. They may be considered unbanked or underbanked. As you know, in our environment, not everybody will go to a bank to look for services because they don't feel understood. Now, in the case of Ovamba, we looked at this issue and we thought, well, access to capitalism is a problem for many SMEs. But if money was going to solve the problem, we wouldn't have the problem anymore. What is the issue is delivering these services in a way that SMEs can access them easily. So Ovamba's only business in this world is to provide access to capital to help SMEs grow in emerging markets.
In emerging markets. And the emerging markets is just oriented toward Africa or emerging markets all over the world?
Well, if you speak to Marvin, he would tell you frontier markets. It just so happens that we are looking at opening in some parts of South America. But here, what we do is we fund small and medium enterprises by paying their suppliers so that they can have more inventory to sell. Okay. Trade is the foremost activity of Africans and other SMEs in emerging markets. And trade runs and drives as much as 70% of GDP. So that's where our focus is.
Great. Now you'll discover that, as you know Africa very well, about 70%, or I think, in my opinion, I think it's about 90%.
You're probably right.
Of the business is conducted in Africa is in the informal sector.
Yes.
Now, how will a classic company like yours, based in the United States, operate with people who are most often in the informal sector? Is it possible?
Yes. First of all, we're registered in the United States, but we are anchored here in Cameroon. Secondly, the informal sector is very active. And you mentioned apps earlier. Ovamba builds technologies. If you look around anywhere, most people, whether they can read or not, they have a telephone. Now, they may be fiddling around on that phone and they're looking at pictures, and they may even be considered functionally illiterate, but they do know how to use a phone. What Ovamba takes advantage of is the fact that many of the informal are very well organized, profitable, run well businesses who may not have registered themselves in the most traditional way. But what we really would prefer for people to develop the idea around is the missing middle of Africa's entire GDP spread. We've got the really tiny micro companies for whom there are plenty of solutions. Look at Kiva, for example. And then at the very far end are the great big behemoths of private-public partnerships. But in the middle are the Mr. Chassis of this world and the individuals who are really just trying to subsist, feed their families, and go beyond employing just their friends and relatives.
Now, at a company like yours, have you or do you have any kind of connection in terms of app development with local SMEs or local companies here in Cameroon?
I'm not sure that I understand the question. Can you try that again?
Yeah, let me put it back. For example, you develop apps, right?
That's one of the things we do.
One of the things. Now, do you work with local companies here? For example, in Boya or in Douala, mostly in Boya, they have what is called
Silicon Mountain.
Silicon Mountain, great.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of contact or collaboration with those local companies around Boya?
I do, from the standpoint that I've mentored many of them. At one point, I was on the board of a group called Active Spaces that was headed up by Rebecca Nonchong. But more importantly, we've had as many as 7 or 8 individuals in our own company working in our IT department that help to develop our products, which are iBank, which was a treasury management system for microfinance institutions, Ovamba itself, the online website, and the mobile app Ovamba Plus, which is downloadable from Google.
Now, to be precise, a person who is watching or listening to you right now and who has an SME,
Yep.
and would like to have a kind of help from you, from Ovamba, how does he or she proceed?
They proceed by going to our website, www.ovamba.com. And the first thing they're going to see is our splash page with some information. And then they're invited to apply to see if they pre-qualify. Pre-qualifying is the most non-banking activity that you can think of at this stage of the process. It gives them an opportunity to find out whether or not they will even fit into consideration for funding by Ovamba. After that, they will be invited, they'll be told right there and then, about 60 seconds later, yes, you pre-qualify. And then there's a much longer application form which collects as much as 500 more data points than your average bank does, because the need to understand SMEs as they really are is part of the problem of why we have this access to credit issue. Now, if they download the app, the same process is happening, but it's an icon, it's on your mobile phone. The web is obviously online, portal, whatever you want to call it.
Good. Now, okay, after having done all what you have been doing, how long has Ovamba been operating in Cameroon?
We just started our 4th year of business.
4th year? That's quite much. And how many people or how many SMEs have you been able to help in one way or the other?
We're counting possibly about 210 companies, but what people don't realize is the Ovamba solution, which is actually called Growth as a Service, makes our customers come very close to us. So most of our customers are on a repeat basis. We get a lot of referrals, which is probably one of the reasons why people haven't heard of us very well. We haven't done a lot of advertising. Word of mouth has been our way of getting around the market and influencing. And then there are those who come back for repeated transactions.
Repeated transaction. In terms of, I know sometimes people, owners of companies, don't want to disclose how much they have generated. I wonder whether you are also of the same bill. Will you be able to tell, okay, for 4 years we have been able to generate this in terms of revenue? Is it possible?
Well, I do know that in this environment for which we're very sensitive, we never share the data of our customers, whether it's turnover or whatever the case may be. But in the case of Ovamba, because we are funded by international investors, we don't mind explaining that we have seen deal flow as much as 125 million euro. So far. But what's more important than how much money we've made is how much money we can put at the disposal of some of these SMEs.
Yes.
And it can be as much as 350 million euro for funding outside of the country or internally for goods that they need to purchase to grow.
And for a company like Ovamba, created in the United States and founded in the United States and operating in Cameroon, how did you find the business climate here? Was it easy for you to start operating, or you had to scale over a number of hurdles?
It was as hostile as heck. I had never expected that it would be so hard. I think there's a saying that no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. And I'm not saying that our customers are enemy, but the environment and our naivety, when you come with this Western mindset that you're going to come and make everything so much better, truly played against us. But the point of sticking around and saying that you're there for the long haul, and the fact that we are designed for African sensibilities and African realities, made it so much easier for us to get through the hurdles. And we changed our business model a number of times before we arrived at the product that we have today.
You said along, when we were responding to my question, you talk about enemies in quotes, right?
Yeah.
Were the enemies the SMIs that you had to come to their aid, or were they, or was it the government?
I think it was our lack of understanding of the regulatory environment, considering that fintech is so new. We're not a financial entity, we're not a bank, we're not regulated by the Ministry of Finance, we're a commerce and trade company. The enemy was the acceptance of concept. Customers coming to us and still trying to measure us against their understanding of a bank. Ovamba doesn't charge interest, for example. We are not a deposit taker. You're not a member of Ovamba. People use the word partner in a very convivial, loose way, and that is not part of our contractual discussion. We fund transactions, we don't give loans. We do something that is so very, very different, and we're the only, maybe one of two companies in the entirety of Africa that's taken this approach to growth. So the enemy would be the impasse of developing a concept that was easily palatable by our customers, many of whom now they get it. They are here to stay.
Yeah. Now, the other question I would like to ask, when you explain that you are able to raise from, let's say, from 10 to about $100,000, if I'm not wrong.
In capital to get invested?
In capital to help the SME. Is it possible? Is that what you were trying to explain to me, that via Ovamba, it is possible to raise capital externally or internally?
No, that is not correct at all. Let me provide the context.
Yes.
We fund customers with capital to buy inventory.
Okay.
The customers are funded by paying their suppliers. It is Ovamba that raises capital for our own operational purposes from external sources around the world, and we are also the ones who raise the capital externally to fund the SMEs.
SMEs.
That is correct.
So you act as a surety at the same time, right?
No, we do not.
You do not?
No.
How
we are basically a platform to attract capital from investors who want to take advantage of the great environment for private sector investment in Africa.
In Africa.
That is
now
correct.
let's talk now on something on personal basis, right? I think that those who are watching us have had a lot of information on Ovamba, and if they need more information, they should go on
Ovamba.com.
.com. Now, on a personal basis, I understand that you were able or instrumental in building a life insurance scheme, investment fund worth $500 million US. Am I correct? How did it happen?
By sheer accident. I've been really fortunate as a woman in business to have found myself accidentally mentored by people or thrown into situations for the one reason that I have the ability to make order out of chaos or to take an idea from startup to finish. So I was headhunted by an individual after I had left a previous job, and this guy is sitting down there in the Four Seasons Hotel around about 2004 talking to me about a brand...
Four Seasons in Washington?
Yes, in Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania Avenue. Talking to me about a brand new asset class, and believe me, you know, it's no different from the experience that I'm in currently. Fintech is a brand new asset class from the investor side. And he's explaining to me that there is a brand new way of creating an investment fund that relies on buying the life insurance policies of wealthy elderly individuals and using actuary timetables of what life expectancies can be, which is basically gambling on death, and pooling them in a securitized manner for investors to buy the insurance policies, pay the elderly individual, and then wait until they die to take the death benefit. And when he approached me, he didn't have any employees. I was the first one. It was such a new job that he actually told me to write my own offer letter. Can you imagine? Well, I put everything I wanted to in there, and ended up with hiring consultants, hiring staff, building out the business, helping him to raise capital, doing all the back-end office and operations. and we had about 500 million in life insurance policies. That's the face value of the fund that we built.
Of the fund you built. And besides that, you had something to do with the International Women Think Tank.
I am involved with the International Women's Think Tank.
And where is it based, and what do they do?
Brenda Morant founded it, and it's based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. They are focused on issues that relate to women, thinking about and developing policies and influencing various groups of individuals. And I'm specifically involved with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, stimulating ways in which young girls can be pushed further and deeper and longer into the science disciplines. And I'm on their honorary board. I'm on the honorary board as a trustee. Okay,
and from the experiences that you've had there, is it possible to kind of share your experience with Cameroonians here? If yes, have you ever tried to do something?
Absolutely. From the time I served on active spaces to the presentations I've given, the informal activity, people I admire like Janet Fofang in Yaoundé, anything to do with STEM, women, gender diversity, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm involved there. The British government actually have invited me on a number of occasions for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to a place called Winston Park in Sussex to discuss gender diversity and policy development in emerging markets, especially as a company leader and a developer of technologies and being in the financial institutions or being in a financial related company. It's very rare to find women in these areas, and it's really important that we speak up. But what's more important, Elie, than me being on the International Women's Think Tank is the fact that myself and Martha Ngendi Fisher have started the African Women's Payment Network, which is an offshoot of the European Women's Payment Network.
And what is it all about?
It's all about, it's fintech yet again.
That's not purely for women.
Well, it's giving women a voice to be able to influence policy and to have us at the table to make sure that when important decisions are being made around payments, technologies, networks, or anything to do with the transfer of capital, whether it be Bitcoin, real or otherwise, that women are involved. And that means that we are opening the door for young women to also have careers and choices in places where they ordinarily wouldn't.
Yeah, but now in such things what you're saying, don't you think that most often is more purely theory?
No.
How do you translate it into reality that you can show on the ground?
Well, it's real with Ovamba. The ideas and the thoughts and the processes that we take when we take a look at the future and whether or not we're going to be involved in blockchain, and the fact that it's discussed openly and often in the office. The fact that thought leadership is really important for shaking the ecosystem for business. I think far too often we have individuals especially on the continent, where they wait until something is real without realizing that you can shape the reality of things by being involved at the creative stage or the implementation stage. So the African Women's Payment Network, European Women's Payment Network, International Women's Think Tank, Ovamba, myself, and many others, this is beyond just discussion. This is where we are laying down the foundations for how real this will be and what it will have as an effect on both curriculum and economies and business.
Okay, now let me bring you back to Ovamba, and let's say one of the examples or the partners, if we may say, like Active Space that you have worked with.
Yes.
Do you think that because you are a woman, you have encouraged more women to be part of Active Space or the development of apps at the Silicon Mountain at Boya?
I have had nothing to do with influencing apps at Silicon Valley and Boya. What I have done in the time that I was with them was to mentor entrepreneurs in how to shape themselves as startups. As it relates to apps, those are apps that are Ovambas. These are apps that we've developed for our own use. Our focus is not to help technology companies to develop. Our focus is to use technologies that we create and innovate to help entrepreneurs to grow.
Now tell us, for example, besides Silicon Mountain, are there other areas in this country or without Cameroon that Ovamba has come to kind of mentoring people to develop?
Yes. And it's funny that you should bring up mentorship. My dear friend, collaborative partner, Adeline Sede of Fab Afrique, gave me the honor of participating in a mentorship and development program that was hosted by Beneficial Insurance Company a couple of weekends ago. Young children whose parents may have passed away but were recipients of a death benefit from insurance. It's funny we should bring this up again. And the question was asked about mentorship, which I wholeheartedly believe in, but my take on it is I don't like formal mentorship. I'm way too busy. I prefer relationships that are real, where you listen to me and I listen to you. And that's mentorship right there. I've had the opportunity of informally finding myself in mentorship with people like Monique Ntumdia, who is one of the young women in our country building green technologies, absolutely brilliant. Take a look at people like Anret Ngafor. I have a true love for the arts and creativity, fashion design. I've mentored those people as well. There are quite a lot of them, and our influence, both from a tech and a financial standpoint, I don't think it can be underestimated as it relates to influencing.
Okay, now when we have an expert like you here, and if you had an advice to offer to all other SMEs in the country and beyond, because not only Cameroonians are watching you.
That's right.
What advice can you give to them?
In what specifically?
For example, like app development, if possible, application. You develop the apps, right? The applications.
Let me try to give some context again.
Yes.
Ovamba Plus is an app that we built.
Yes.
It allows SMEs to apply for capital. The app has got nothing to do with helping other people to develop apps.
Good.
Nothing whatsoever. And then the other app that we have coming out next week, which we haven't named yet, is the one that we're using in order to consolidate African languages so that the informal sector that you mentioned earlier and those who are maybe functionally illiterate can use their own language to speak into their phone and communicate with Ovamba to apply for funding. When I discuss apps, it's really the fact that it's our tool to help others. We do not help other people to develop apps.
Okay, now if you have other SMEs who really wanted to use or pass through Ovamba to raise capital,
apply for funding.
Or apply for funding. What are the prerequisites? I know you want them to go on your website, but there are some people who do not have that.
Sure, and you know what? That's why we have great salespeople in our office, and they are more than welcome to phone us or to call us. And in that case, what we need to tell them is this: they must be over the age of 21.
Good.
They must have had their business for about a year. They cannot be in any of our prohibited businesses, which involve timber, logging, extractive industries, mining, pornography, alcoholic beverages and distribution, or primary agriculture. The reason being that we're actually one of the only Sharia compliant platforms in the world as well.
Really?
That's right.
I can understand that pornography, right?
Yes.
But mining, logging,
that's right.
What has that got to do?
It's got nothing to do with trade. It does not allow us to have a fast-moving consumable good in play that can be purchased and can be housed and help them with stock control and turnover. Plus, those industries, heavily regulated and actually are not the province of small and medium enterprises.
Okay. Well, it was really a great pleasure having you, Madam Viola.
That's one.
Great. So we hope that those who have been watching us right now have been able to get something. And if they would like to have more on Ovamba, they can log on www.ovamba.com.
And they can ask for the growth as a service product, which is, if next time I come to talk to you, is incredibly revolutionary because it allows us to buy the goods on behalf of customers and also to provide them with flexible warehousing so they never have to worry about having no space to stock their goods.
Thank you very much. And please do not go away. Stay tuned on programs here on Canal Do English. And tomorrow is another day. Thank you.